Welcome back, everybody, to the Tennessee Titans franchise here on Madden 23. With a win, the Titans clinched the AFC South and advanced to the postseason for the first time in this series. The only team standing in our way of doing that is the Baltimore Ravens. These two teams have a lot of history in recent years with multiple playoff matchups. These two teams do not seem to like each other, so I think it's going to be a pretty fun matchup. We are now 3/4 through the season. We're in week 15, and currently the team is 9-4. We're coming off a doubleheader in the last episode. We won both games, but both games really couldn't have gone much differently. So, just for some context, we're 9-4. We really needed to beat the Texans and the Jaguars, and we did. We dominated against the Texans 45-14. Malik Willis had probably the best game of his career. He won the AFC Offensive Player of the Week. We could have scored more points, but we kind of let the pedal off the metal in the second half. Against the Jaguars, we also won, but it came at a cost. Malik Willis suffered a broken forearm. He's going to pretty much missed the rest of the year. We put him on the injured reserve. So unfortunately, because of a late dirty hit from Trayvon Walker, his season is done. Now, we still won the game, but obviously losing our starting quarterback hurts. We turned it over to Garrett Pace, an undrafted rookie out of Georgia Tech. And, there are some things to like about his game going forward for the rest of the season. But obviously, it's going to be a lot different having him as the starting quarterback instead of Malik Willis. So pretty much, we've got to get to the playoffs and make a playoff run with an undrafted rookie quarterback. And if things go south, we do have Geno Smith on the roster as well, an experienced backup who could maybe, provide us with good play if Garrett Pace falls flat on his face. So currently we're the number 2 seed in the AFC, tied with the Steelers and the Chiefs. The Steelers did beat us, so they had the head-to-head tiebreaker. But hopefully with the quarterback injury, we'll be able to keep pace in the playoff race. I know I made the exact same joke in the last episode, but it was right at the end of the video. I don't know how many people heard it, so I figured I'd make it again. All right, we have a prospect profile today. We're going to be going over the offensive and defensive linemen in this year's draft class, the Hog Mollies. Keep in mind, we have a lot of picks, including 2 in the first round and 2 in the second round. So far, we've covered quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And now we're focusing on the big fellas up front. Starting with the offensive line, I think our offensive line has improved compared to last season. We've added guys like Sekou Bateau and Gianluigi Mandariano from the draft. We signed Eric McCoy. We extended Nate Davis. But really, other than Nate Davis, I'm not convinced anybody here is going to be a long-term piece. Eric McCoy only signed a 2-year deal. Taylor Lewan's a free agent in the offseason. So don't be surprised if we go offensive line early. As we look at left tackle, the top projected one currently is Angelo Nix out of Minnesota. The Golden Gophers have been a little bit disappointing this season, but Nix has been a stable rock for the blind side at that left tackle position. He's had a really good season against some really good edge rushers, such as in this game with Wisconsin against Justin Anthony, a projected 2nd to 3rd round pick. He's a mauler in the run game, pretty good in the pass game, and he's really athletic for his size, 6'7", 350 pounds. The production over the last 2 years really has been off the charts, and there aren't really many concerns about this young man's game, and I think whoever drafts him is going to be getting a starting left tackle for a decade. Chance Upshaw from NC State is another pretty talented player. NC State, another team that's not great, but I think Chance Upshaw is a great left tackle. Not quite on the level of Angelo Nix in terms of athleticism or production, but he is still really solid. Also better in the run game, but he only allowed 3 sacks this year. He's been pretty good in the pass game. Another guy who I think has a really high floor and is going to be a very good pro. Solomon Fa'amate from Oregon, currently projected to be a day 2 pick. I think he's going to be really, really good value. Obviously, Oregon is one of the most explosive offenses in the country. We rave on about their quarterback and their skill position players, but Fa'amate really anchors their loaded offensive line. He's a really well-rounded player, maybe not as consistent in the pass game as those top 2 left tackles, but I think Fa'amate is really, really good. As we go down the board looking for some gems, my favorite day 3 player left tackle in the class is Abu out of the University of Kentucky. 6'4", nearly 330 pounds. I think in comparison to some of the other day 3 offensive linemen, he's got really good athleticism and very solid production. Really, really good in the pass game. Needs to clean it up in the run game, but I think with his upside, he could be really good. As we move over to left guard, you don't find guards projected to go in the top 5 really ever, and that's what makes Magnus Zimmerman out of Notre Dame so special. The two best guard prospects in the last decade are Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson, both of whom came from Notre Dame, and both of whom have lived up to the hype as Hall of Fame level talents. Well, Magnus Zimmerman is the next on the list. 6'5", 345 pounds. This is a large human being. He has been the best offensive lineman in the country, really 2 years in a row. He doesn't necessarily have elite athleticism, but the production is just so good. This is a people mover. He will maul you and will let you know about it. You do not find guards go in the top 5 really at all, but he is a generational talent at the position. As we go down the board here, I think Sean Smith out of Georgia is a pretty good player. Georgia might have 2 offensive guards go in the first round, which is pretty crazy, especially considering guard in comparison to other positions isn't really viewed as super valuable, which I don't really think is true. I think offensive guards are very important. I think what Sean Smith does for the Georgia offense is really impressive. He's not necessarily a mauler per se, but he's very consistent. He doesn't allow pressures, and I think he's going to be a good pro. Kenny Brewer and Zachariah Mukaralu are some solid players down the board as we move over to center. Syracuse's Benvolio Berkeley is the top projected center in this class, being viewed currently as a fringe first-rounder. I think he'll end up more as an early second-round pick, but still a really solid prospect. Good athleticism, good production. He's probably been the best center in college football this season. 6'6", 300 pounds. He's a great run blocker, and he's pretty solid in the pass game as well. He's got really good athleticism. I think he's going to tear it up at the combine. Brian Forrest Smith from Oklahoma is an interesting player. He had a couple of his siblings get drafted last year. Daniel Forrest Smith, first rounder to the Jets, and then Nathaniel Forrest Smith picked on day 2 to the Panthers. And I think Carlisle Kaplan from Oregon is also pretty solid as well. As we move on to right guard, there are 2 very good players at the top, with Kenneth Scott first up. Kenneth Scott is really good, and I think if you compare him to the other Georgia guards, Sean Smith, I would personally give Scott the slight edge. I think he's going to end up possibly as a top 20 pick. Really good athleticism. His movement ability for someone his size is special, phenomenal in the run game, pretty solid in the pass game, although he is a little bit inconsistent there. And then we get to Cornelius Jones, who I think on paper might be as good as Kenneth Scott. There are some off-field character questions with Cornelius Jones. He does have a decorated past, and not necessarily in a good way, but over the past couple of years, he has cleaned up his act. He's been a really solid starter for Florida. Not the most consistent on a play-to-play basis, which isn't ideal. Sometimes his focus just seems a little bit off at times, and he has a couple really bad reps here and there. But with his athleticism and his ability to ram people over in the run game, I think he could be really good. I think he's going to go a lot earlier than his projection because he's just too talented, and I think the off-field stuff is not as much of a worry as it was early in his college career, so I think he'll probably end up being a second-round pick. Drondo Shock from Ole Miss could be a really good gem, probably in the 4th or 5th round at right guard. Really good athlete, really good run blocker. I think he's a little bit more consistent than those top 2 right guards. Maybe he doesn't have the upside necessarily that they do, particularly in the pass game. But I think for a 4th rounder, this guy could be a really solid starter for quite a while at the right guard position. Some interesting players down the board here. Telemakos Pugalu and Ishmael Curry are really solid. So is Griffith Zagaran. And then we move to right tackle. Kalen Thonts out of Florida might be the top non-quarterback off the board. 6'8", 344 pounds. This is a really big human. He can play right tackle and left tackle. I'm not really sure why Florida doesn't have him at left tackle on the blind side, but I guess right tackle might be his more natural position. But I think you could plug him in at either tackle spot. For his size, he's really athletic, really solid. Consistency does need to improve a little bit, but I think the ceiling with him is super high. I think you could be looking at one of the best tackles in the NFL in no time. Look at guys like Mekhi Becton and Evan Neal. Those guys are mammoths, and they move special, kind of like Kalen Thonts does. Omar Irons, I think, might be a little bit more pro-ready. He doesn't necessarily have the athleticism or the ceiling that Kalen Thonts out of Florida does, but I think Omar Irons is a little bit more consistent on a play-to-play basis, and, I mean, you're looking for guys who are reliable on your offensive line, and I think that's what Irons is. Good athlete, really good in pass protection, although he has allowed 9 sacks this year, but I think a lot of those has been because he's faced off against some really good edge rushers, not to necessarily make excuses for him. And then I think Moses Munoz out of Northwestern could also be a first-round pick as well. Munoz is a big guy, 6'7", around 300 pounds, another guy who just moves uniquely for his size in a good way. I think he's going to be a pretty good starter on day one at right tackle. Solid athleticism, really good in the pass game, pretty good as a run blocker as well. He's been a little bit more inconsistent in the pass game this year compared to the past, but I wouldn't really worry about it too much. I think he's going to be very good. And then going down the board, Adam Royal from Oregon's a good player. Some other guys on day 3 as well. But I think really one of the biggest gems in the entire draft is Evan Smith out of Penn State. I feel like a lot of people in the draft community haven't really, seen what I've seen in him. But I think as we get closer to the pre-draft process, his stock is really going to rise. 6'5", 360 pounds. People of his size should not be able to move the way he does. The production this year is off the charts. I would not be surprised if he's a top 50 pick. I know he's projected to go in the 3rd or 4th round, but I think he's going to be a special player at the next level. And if he does end up being a 3rd or 4th rounder, just know we've got our eyes on him. There are some other players who are not currently seniors, but could declare for the draft as well. And if they do, we'll obviously talk about them down the line. There are some really, really good young offensive linemen in college football. As we move to the defensive line, certainly an area we may look to improve upon. Fletcher Cox and A.J. Ebenezer are both free agents this year. Christian Barmore is a free agent next year. Keep in mind we run a 3-4. Our main edge rushers have their hand out at the dirt, like Harold Landry, Jordan Ruffin, and Bud Dupree. So we're really looking for a big, dominant nose tackle, 3-4 defensive ends, and then 3-4 outside linebackers who can rush the passer, like Harold Landry, who is playing at a Defensive Player of the Year level right now. 25 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks. He is currently the favorite for the Defensive Player of the Year and absolutely deserves it, but we need to give Harold Landry some more help. He can't do it alone. So I think defensive line is really going to be an area that the Titans look to early, and that starts with Adai Awar out of Notre Dame. So I think the defensive line class, particularly at the left end position, is a little bit weaker in comparison to what it normally is. I think the next couple defensive line draft classes are going to be really, really good, but this year I think it's a little bit lackluster, although I think Awar is really solid. 6'5", 260 pounds. In the Titans scheme, he'd probably line up as more of a 3-4 outside linebacker, and I do think he has the explosiveness and quickness to play there. His numbers are a little bit down this year, mainly because Notre Dame lost a lot of talent in the front seven, so defenses have really focused on him, and he's had to do what he could while being double-teamed. Blitz Dixon has the name you look for in an NFL defensive lineman. 6'3", 280 pounds. He's been really, really solid throughout the past couple of years for Rutgers. Now, his sack production has dropped every season of his career since he was a sophomore, which obviously is not ideal, but he's a powerful player who is a positive asset in the run game. I don't think he ever is going to be an elite pass rusher, but I think his ability to stay on the field all 3 downs is really, really valuable. Not great athleticism, so again, I don't think the ceiling is super high, but I think he's got a chance to be a pretty good pro. And then Daniel Prince out of Baylor is a very unique player. The sack production is definitely there. He has 6 this year so far, 4.5 last year. He doesn't really have a great toolbox of pass rushing moves. He really relies on his quickness and his pursuit to get into the backfield. So it's not ideal that he doesn't really have any major pass rushing moves now. And I think you could argue that the sack numbers are a little bit inflated, but his quickness and burst is really incredible. So if he can develop moves as a pass rusher, I think he's got a chance to be really good, but he's got a little ways to go. I think Gaston Miller Jr. out of Clemson's in a similar boat, minus that he doesn't really have as much sack production. Maurice Taylor, also a pretty solid player, but he's kind of a tweener, only 235 pounds, but I don't know if he has the explosiveness to play linebacker. And then going down the board, there are some interesting players down here, such as Amito Sanogo and Laverne Pulsifer. As we move over to right end, I think Gilbert Smith out of Oklahoma is a special player. He's been looked at as a first-rounder for a little while now, and I do think he's got a real shot to end up as a top 10 pick, and certainly the first defensive lineman off the board. 6'5", 265 pounds. I think Smith is the total package. He can win with finesse, he can win with power, a wide array of pass rush moves, and his ability in the run game has drastically improved from his junior season to his senior season. The sack numbers aren't going to wow you, but he leads the SEC in pressures. He has 20 tackles for loss, which is a career high, making a big impact in the run game. So no, the sack numbers aren't going to wow you per se. 6 last year, 5.5 this year. That'll certainly go up, especially if Oklahoma gets into the college football playoff. But I think Gilbert Smith's going to be a really, really good pro. Somebody who probably does not fall out of the top 10. There are some other possible first-rounders here, including Justin Osefu out of Washington State. The sack production with Osefu is definitely there over the past couple of seasons. He's been the best player on a really, really solid Washington State defense. Not as consistent in the run game, but he knows how to get to the quarterback, man. And, I mean, that's what you're looking for in a first-round pass rusher. Good athleticism, not great, but good. Certainly nothing to worry about. If you look at the numbers, 6.5 sacks last year. He's upped that to 9.5 this year. 6'4", 250 pounds. I think in our scheme, he would probably have his hand out of the dirt, and I think he's explosive enough to line as a 3-4 outside linebacker. George Charbonnet II out of Idaho is a really intriguing player as well. Another player with very high sack production. Idaho doesn't necessarily breed NFL talent, but I think Charbonnet is going to be really, really good at the next level. This is a guy who has shown improvement throughout his collegiate career. The sack production is definitely there. He's the FBS active leader in sacks at 24. He's got 8.5 sacks this year, a career high, and I think he's an NFL-level athlete. I think he's a versatile player as well. You can put him at a number of different spots on the defensive line, and I think when it's said and done, Charbonnet will be a first-rounder. Ron McDevitt II is one of my favorite stories in the entire draft. He spent the first 4 years of his collegiate career at the University of Delaware, where he was a pretty good player, but then he decided he wanted to enlist in the United States Air Force. With one more year of eligibility left, he figured he'd play football, and he's played so well that he's getting NFL draft buzz. He's had 9.5 sacks this year, more sacks than any senior in the country, 24 tackles for loss as well. A year ago, this guy wasn't even being looked at as a draft prospect, and now he might be a first-rounder, and for good reason. Really good production. He's got NFL athleticism and NFL size. I think he could end up as a first-rounder, which is remarkable because nobody knew who he was a year ago. Now, moving on to some of the day 2 guys, I think DeAndre Clark from the University of Louisiana Monroe is an interesting player. Clark was really good as a sophomore. He had 9.5 sacks. Things were really looking up for him, but he tore his ACL pretty early on into his junior season. Here's a senior. He's back in business. He hasn't quite been as good as he was as a sophomore, but the athleticism and the explosiveness is back. So I think that suggests that he'll be just fine. He has really improved this year in the run game, which is certainly a positive. So obviously the past knee injury is not ideal, but I think he could be a good player. Some other interesting day 2 players include Jalen Woods Jr. and Kason Schofield. But I really like Ernest Vaughn from Baylor. We talked about the other Baylor edge rusher, Daniel Price. I think Ernest Vaughn is the complete opposite. I think he's super polished and going to be ready to go day 1. He's got really good pass rush moves. He doesn't have elite quickness or explosiveness, so I think the ceiling isn't overly high. But he has 7 sacks this year. This is a guy who looks ready. I think he's going to be a good NFL player right off the bat. And no, he may never be a double-digit sack per year guy, but I think he's going to be a really reliable player in the league for a while. As we go down the board, looking at some possible gems, I think Ezekiel Uwazurike out of Middle Tennessee State could be really, really good. Middle Tennessee State is one of the best defenses in college football, and we'll get to see them most likely in full display during the college football playoff. Uwazurike is a big part of that. Unbelievable explosiveness for his size at 6'3", 265 pounds. Now, the sack production has gone down a little bit, but he's really improved as a run defender each year of his career, so I think that certainly goes for something. I think he's more of the day 2 talent, so the fact that he's probably going to be a 5th or 6th rounder is really, really good value for whoever ends up getting him. Moving on to defensive tackle, you've got 2 first-round guys who are honestly polar opposite players. Let's start with Hercules Oceanus out of Ohio State. This is a guy who's been a rotation run defender over the past couple of years. This season, he's taken on a bigger role, and he has capitalized. He's been one of the most impactful defensive linemen in the country. 6'8", 280 pounds. He's got an insane wingspan. Look at this play where he tackles the Texas running back with one arm. I mean, his arms are so long. He plays with unbelievable play strength. But the weird thing about him is sort of his build. 6'8", 282 pounds. I think if he were to lose a little weight, he could be an edge rusher, but the problem with that is he's not really explosive. So I think he could look to gain weight, and that's not to say he isn't strong. He might be the strongest player in the entire draft class, but I think he could use 30 or 40 more pounds of body and muscle mass. I think that'd really help him out. On the flip side, I think Udo Afolabi would be a lot better if he lost like 30 or 40 pounds. So maybe Afolabi should try to transfer his weight over to Hercules Oceanus. Udo Afolabi reminds me a lot of Jordan Davis, who came out of Georgia a couple years ago. He was a very, very big guy who had a little trouble staying on the field because of his size. I don't think Afolabi is as dominant as Jordan Davis, so I don't think he's going to go as high, but still probably a top 20 or so pick. I think he's really explosive for his size, and he's got a wide array of moves as a run stopper and as a pass rusher, but I just think he needs to stay on the field more. He only plays around 50% of Oklahoma's defensive snaps. I think that's just because his lack of conditioning. So I think if he lost probably 30 or 40 pounds, that would really help him out. Maybe he would lose a little bit of his strength and his dominance, but I think with his explosiveness, he'd be able to make that up. So I'll be interested to see who takes a shot on him, probably in the late first round, and how they're ultimately going to choose to develop him. As we go down the board looking for some hidden diamonds, I think Alexander Ekwueme out of LSU is a really interesting player. 6'5", 275 pounds, profiles more as an edge rusher. I feel like LSU has really misused him, kind of. If you want to make him a real interior defensive lineman, maybe have him gain a little bit of weight, because he doesn't necessarily play with elite play strength. He doesn't necessarily have, like, fantastic explosiveness off the edge, but it's good enough. So I think in the Titans scheme, he'd be a really good fit at 3-4 defensive end. I think he's a lot better than his numbers suggest. Again, I think LSU's kind of misutilized his skill set. The coaching at LSU over the past couple of years has not been good, so I'd be willing to take a gamble on him late in the draft. And then as we look at some of the possible underclassmen, there are some really, really good defensive linemen who are non-seniors. A lot of these guys, I think, will be first-rounders in the next few years. And I think a lot of these players would be smart to enter this year's draft because this year's group of defensive linemen is a little bit weaker, but I think the next couple defensive line classes are going to be really, really special. So I'm curious to see which of those young guys ultimately choose to end up declaring for the draft early. So that'll wrap up the prospect profile. Let me know what linemen you like down below in the comments. We've got linebackers in the secondary coming up as well. That'll be in a later episode. Our main priority right now is the Baltimore Ravens, who are 7-6. They started the year 6-1, and then everything has completely fallen apart as they have really struggled recently. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games. They're just not playing good football, and they're kind of due for a win. But on the flip side, they're ice cold, and we're red hot. We've won 5 in a row. So you'd think maybe we'd be able to add another win here. We have one of the biggest win streaks. They have one of the biggest losing streaks in the NFL. However, I do not want to undervalue these guys. They're really talented. Lamar Jackson is a dynamic player at the quarterback position. There are not many quarterbacks with his playmaking ability. Maybe not overly consistent on a play-to-play basis, but he is a dynamic football player and has been paid accordingly. Their situation in the backfield is interesting because Ronnie DeRugi has started at running back the past couple of weeks and has played pretty well. However, that's been because of J.K. Dobbins being injured, and J.K. Dobbins is now back healthy. So I'm really curious to see how they're going to utilize Dobbins, who got hurt really right around when the Ravens started losing. So maybe he's really important. They've got a group of talented weapons on offense, specifically Mark Andrews. Very solid offensive line, really, really good defense. The Ravens always have good defenses. So it's going to be a tough battle. These Ravens are fighting for a lot. They really want to be able to grab a playoff spot, and they feel like they're due for a win against a team who they don't really like, and, well, the feeling is mutual. We don't really like these guys either. So I think it'll be a fun game. The first NFL start for number 4, Garrett Pace, leading the way for the Titans offense. And Tennessee will open up with football, so we'll get a look at Garrett Pace, the undrafted rookie out of Georgia Tech, making his first NFL start today. He's played in 2 games so far, 13 of 28, 143 passing yards, and a touchdown. So we'll see how he ends up doing here today. Gets a really good defense. On 3rd and 4, he checks it down for Derrick Henry. Expect a big performance from Derrick Henry. He's going to be relied on more than ever to carry the offense. 3rd and 9, Pace looks to throw it, and he is picked off. Patrick Queen with the interception for the Ravens, and they'll get the ball in enemy territory. So the rookie with a rookie mistake turning over the ball as Baltimore has it back. Jackson is sacked. Epineza and Landry in the backfield for half a sack each. Great play there in specific by Harold Landry. Now has 12 sacks, continuing his Defensive Player of the Year-esque season. And then on 3rd down, the pass for Bateman is broken up by Caleb Fairley. So the Titans have it back. Good throw up the middle by Pace, and it's caught by McCole Hardman, who gets it to the 28-yard line. You just really want to see Garrett Pace get comfortable in the pocket today and feel confident with his ability throwing the football. As on third down, he goes short for Scotty Pickens. He thought he had Pickens on a good read because there was nobody in the middle of the field, but Anthony Walker makes a really good tackle to stop Pickens of getting the first down. So the Ravens have it back. 3rd and 8, good throw for Rashad Bateman, the former first-rounder out of Minnesota who gets it to the 48, quickly tackled by the rookie Cardell Simpson. Following play from the 48, 2:20 to go in the quarter. Lamar keeps it on the option, and he loses 4. Jordan Ruffin, the 3rd-round rookie out of South Florida, makes the play. Ruffin has been improving every week. I'm really impressed with his development. 3rd and 11, Lamar chooses to throw it away. This has been an ugly first quarter. Both of these offenses look terrible. So the Titans have it back, but not for long. Pace is sacked in the end zone. Tyus Bowser with the safety, the Koopa King. Odafe there as well. 2-0 is your score after the first quarter. There has been no offense today. It's fitting that the only points today have come from the defensive side of the ball. We'll see what the Ravens can do after the safety, as it seems like their offense is starting to get a rhythm. Lamar Jackson with a nice throw. That'll bring the Ravens to the 9-yard line. 1st and goal. Can Baltimore punch it in on the read option? It's Jackson who will dive into the end zone for a touchdown. So it looks like the Ravens have woken up. They get the safety, and they capitalize on offense with a rushing touchdown by Lamar Jackson, and it's now 9-0. The Titans offense has to show something. Garrett Pace has been pretty bad so far, so they're going to have to continue to lean on the ground game as Henry gains 19 yards, pushed away late by Kyle Hamilton. 3rd down and 5. Pace short throw for Treylon Burks, and he is just shy of the yard to gain. Big tackle by Patrick Queen. So it's a 4th and 1. The Titans are past midfield. They figure why not go for it, and it pays off as Derrick Henry gets the first down, trucking the defender en route to getting to the 40-yard line. Good play by King Henry. 3rd and 10. Garrett Pace looks to throw, and he has a wide-open man downfield. It's Robert Woods who brings it to the 8, wrapped up by Hamilton. Really good play by Garrett Pace. He had Woods wide open, makes a perfect throw, and Woods makes a good play after the catch. 1st and goal now from the 8. Pace keeps it on the read option, and he loses 4. Dexter Lawrence brings him down, acquired in a midseason trade with the New York Giants. Now a 3rd and goal. Pace looks to throw it, and it is caught for a touchdown by the rookie, Scotty Pickens. What a great catch by Pickens. He had Marcus Williams flying over to him, but makes a really good catch in contact, holding on to the football, keeping his footing. What a great play by the rookie receiver who continues to be a superstar for the offense. So the Titans are on the board late in the first half. It's now 9-7, still a very low-scoring game. The Ravens looking to do some damage, and that's not going to happen. Christian Fulton with the interception. Fulton has dropped countless interceptions this year, and he finally hauls one in. And now the Titans are going to have a good opportunity to score and take the lead before halftime. The Titans have 20 seconds and 1 timeout. They just can't make any stupid mistakes like, say, getting sacked at the 45-yard line. And that is exactly what happens. A rookie mistake there by Pace. You just got to throw it away, forcing the Titans to call their last timeout. Down to 7 seconds. The field goal unit is on. A 62-yard attempt for Randy Bullock, who has not yet missed a kick in this series, and his streak will remain perfect. Fat Randy Bullock drills it from 62 yards, a personal record, and the Titans take the lead going into halftime by the score of 10-9. It has been an ugly football game, but hey, you'd rather win an ugly one than lose a pretty one. So let's take a look at our halftime report around the rest of the NFL, check in on some of the other games as we start in Pittsburgh. If the Colts lose, the Titans clinch the division today regardless. They're facing off against the Steelers, another low-scoring game. Pittsburgh leads 7-3. I honestly think it'd be better for the Titans if the Colts won this game. The Titans are probably going to end up winning the division regardless, so I think more of their concern shifts towards seeding. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 9-4. They're the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they had the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Titans. So I think it'd be more beneficial for us if the Steelers lost as opposed to the Colts. Next up, the Patriots head to the Meadowlands to take on the Jets. Both of these teams 8-5 atop the AFC East, and currently it's New England getting the better of the Jets. They lead 21-10 with a beautiful throw in the back of the end zone from Mac Jones to Kendrick Bourne. Mac Jones has been near flawless today, 14 of 16, 2 touchdowns. He is balling. And then finally, the Texans head to the Big Easy to take on the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints saw the blueprint for beating the Texans given by the Titans a couple weeks ago. The blueprint? Air the ball out. The dynamic trio of Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, and Chris Olave is cooking. The Saints lead 17-0 here against the Texans. Houston looked very respectable early in the season, but now they're looking more like the Houston Texans that we've seen the past couple of years, and that is not really a good thing if you're a Texans fan. So as we go into the second half, it's been an ugly game. Our offense is not playing well. Garrett Pace has looked pretty bad, but we're still winning. The defense has done a fantastic job, so hopefully we can keep it going here in the second half. We've been able to limit Lamar Jackson's ability as a scrambler out of the pocket. I really want to focus on throwing the ball because with this game being close, we may have to pass it late, and we need Garrett Pace to be on his A game. And then on the other side of the ball, got to keep stopping Lamar Jackson. We did it in the first half. Let's do it again. Let's win ourselves a goddamn football game. So as we go into the second half, Baltimore starts with the ball. 2nd and 9. J.K. Dobbins breaks 2 tackles. Dobbins with a big run, finally. But there's a flag. But one time the Ravens offense has some sort of explosive play, it gets called for a holding. The All-Pro Ronnie Stanley called for the flag. A big blow for Baltimore here on this possession. That'll make it a 3rd and 4 here at the 31 for the Ravens. Lamar looks to throw it, and it is dropped by Fulton. So Christian Fulton's back to his ways of dropping interceptions as the Titans have it back. 3rd and 9. Pace looking downfield for Reddick, and he overthrows him. So Garrett Pace misfires once again, and the Ravens have it back. 3rd and 6. It's a screen for Dobbins. He gets nothing. Wrapped up by Bud Dupree. So far here in the third quarter, the offensive struggles have continued for both teams. The Titans have the 3rd and 2. Alec Bostic does not get the first down. Wrapped up just shy of the yard to gain by David Ojabo. 4th and inches. The Titans are going to look to go for it here. Gutsy call, and they got it. It is risky to go for it in your own territory, but the decision pays off as Derrick Henry gets a couple yards. 3rd and 10. Pace up the middle. Connects with Scotty Pickens, who makes a nice play after the catch, breaking tackles to the 34-yard line. Garrett Pace should just throw the ball to Scotty Pickens more. I think that'd be a good idea. 3rd and 6. Pace scrambling with it. Gotta get rid of it, but he gets sacked by Trey Flowers. So it's a 4th and 19 at the 43, and the Titans are going to kick again. Randy Bullock made one from 62 earlier. This one from 60. Got it! Randy Bullock with an amazing kick from 60 yards out. His second 60-plus yard field goal of the day. And it's now 13-9. J.K. Dobbins breaking tackles of a big run, wrapped up by Kevin Byard and friends at the 44-yard line, that time with no flag. That'll wrap up the third. Much of the same. All defense as the Titans lead 13-9. But the Ravens do have the ball, looking to strike here in the fourth quarter. 2nd and 10, 9 minutes to go. Lamar Jackson under pressure, heaves it into traffic, and it's intercepted. Kevin Byard, the all-pro safety, picks it off with a good return. Wrapped up at the 29 by Rashad Bateman. A huge interception for Kevin Byard. And now the Titans can look to chew some clock and try to close out this game. 2nd and 9 from the 30. Garrett Pace looks to go for a pass. The Ravens are playing for heavy prevent defense, and that's going to mean the middle of the field is open for Scotty Pickens to make a play. 1st and 10 now at the 41. Clock is ticking, around 6 minutes to go. Pace again looks to throw it. Under pressure, and he goes once again for Scotty Pickens. Pace and Pickens are really starting to gain some chemistry here in the second half. It's really good to see, because Scotty Pickens needs the ball in his hands as much as he can throughout this final portion of the season. On 1st down, Pace is under pressure, and he is sacked. Jack Ace, the rookie out of Penn State, makes a play for Baltimore. 3rd and 5 at the 7. Pace looks to throw it. Short for McCole Hardman, and he gets the first down. A big play for the Titans, who now can punch it in and make it a 2-score lead. 3rd and goal. Derrick Henry says, "Get off me, young man!" A 6-minute drive leads to a touchdown for the Titans. And Tennessee looks like they should be able to close out this game. They've scored 20 unanswered points, and they just need one more stop here against the Ravens offense. Lamar Jackson on 1st down gets it over to Dobbins, hit hard. That brings us to the 2-minute warning. The Titans look good. They lead 20-9. 2nd and 4. Jackson under pressure, sacked by Fletcher Cox. Baltimore has to move quickly, and they would ultimately call a timeout. 3rd and 10. Lamar Jackson looks to throw it. His pass is caught by the big tight end, Mark Andrews. He's been pretty quiet today, but he does get the first down. 3rd and 8. Lamar looks to throw it downfield, tipped by Caleb Farley. So on 4th and 8, the field goal team comes out. A 60-yard try for Justin Tucker. Randy Bullock's already made 2 60-plus yard kicks, and Justin Tucker's going to join the club. There have been 3 field goals attempted today, all of them from 60-plus yards, and all of them have been good. So now Baltimore's got to go for an onside kick. Tennessee bobbles it, but they quickly pick it up. It's McCole Hardman who recovers it. That was close. So now all the Titans need is a first down to finish this game off once and for all. 3rd and 2, handoff for Henry, and he slams the door. Good night. The Titans have won 6 in a row. They beat the Ravens 20-12, and this means the Tennessee Titans, for the first time in this series, have clinched the division and are going to the playoffs. A big win here for Tennessee with a backup quarterback. And no, Garrett Pace did not play all that well today, but the story was the rest of the team really playing some good football, and I think that's really this Titans team is. I mean, they may not have great quarterback play, and it's not like the quarterback play was fantastic with Malik Willis, but the rest of this team plays such fundamentally sound football, and that's how we won this game today. Garrett Pace was not great. 17 of 31, 196 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. We saw more rookie mistakes than big plays, which isn't ideal, but he was better than Lamar Jackson, who really struggled. He threw 2 interceptions. Both QBs did not play well. The difference is we ran the ball well, and they did not. Ronnie DeRuggi only getting the ball 2 times is coaching malpractice. None of the receivers were all that good except for Scotty Pickens, because Scotty Pickens is him. Both defenses were really good. Both kickers were really good. Shout out to Randy Bullock and Justin Tucker, the 2 best kickers in the NFL. So a good win. We're 10-4. We clinched the division. It's not going to say we've clinched the division until we simulate to the next week, but just know we have. As we take a look at some of the results around the league, the Steelers unfortunately won. That's not good. What is good is that the Rams lost. They played Dallas, so it's not really a surprise, but still, that Rams draft pick is looking pretty good, probably towards the middle of the first round. Players of the week, Aaron Rodgers, Mac Jones, Roquan Smith, and Von Miller. Being 10-4, we can officially say we've clinched the division, and man, it feels good. This division was so much better last year. The Colts and Jags both won 12 games, so I think it's more so the division being weak that we've clinched it so early, but I mean, through week 15, only 2 teams have clinched a playoff spot, and one of them's us. That's a really good feeling. So we're still the 2 seed. The Steelers obviously won, so they're still ahead of us. And at this point, we're playing for seeding. With 3 more games left on the schedule, it should be fun. Going to have a prospect profile pretty soon, maybe in the next episode. I'm not really sure yet. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out. Tighten up.